Good day, folks, and welcome to Quarry Side Chat, where we interview Freemasons to discuss topics about the past, present, and future of Freemasonry in the 21st century. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are sole opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversation on the level and open to the public. Today, we have Brother Dr. Govind Welling, who is of sixth generation Freemason, who was initiated in the Victoria number 9 Lodge. And he is also a high level academic who has done about 300 articles on Freemasonry and other 40 lectures all over India. So he will be giving us a entire presentation and breakdown of symbolism in Freemasonry and how we can look at it from different aspects and perceive it from his perspective. Govind, here's to you, brother.
Thank you very much, Richard, for that wonderful introduction of mine. And good afternoon to all right worshipful, very worshipful, and brethren. What I'm going to talk on today is symbolism. And when I talk on symbolism, I'm going to talk on symbolism that really exists, and one part of symbolism that has got to do with Masonry that may astound a lot of us in Freemasonry. Well, what is a symbol? A symbol is a mark or a character used as a conventional representation of an object, function, or process. Example, letter or letters standing for a chemical element or a character in musical notation is called as a symbol. It is a shape or sign used to represent something such as an organization, a Red Cross, or a Star of David. Okay, this is all wrong. This is just to get the atmosphere relaxed. Okay, kindly go through those symbols which I have put up on the screen for you. But this is all wrong. Let me go to the real symbols. The next slide, Rinesh. Yes, we are getting to the business, and we are getting to the business part of it. These are your musical symbols, which I basically talked about. Can we go to the other one, please? Yes, these are known symbols. We are talking of the Red Cross here. And then we are talking of the Star of David. Well, it is also a thing that represents or stands for something else, especially a material object representing something abstract. A symbol is an object that represents, stands for, or suggests an idea, a visual image, a belief, an action, or a material entity. Well, does this make sense to a lot of us? This is a 20,000-year-old painting on a cave wall. Can I have the next slide? Well, 20,000 years, they say, using mainly red pigments and sometimes black, with hand stencils, engravings, dots, discs, geometric designs. Well, wait, I say 20,000 years old? And in Europe, does this exist? Yes, it does. Can you take me to the next slide? Well, when I saw this thing for the first time, I thought it was a kid that was putting us in the loop. Okay, I didn't realize all this. Just look at this painting. Someone put us in the loop, I felt. I said, look at this chap. Some of it looked like as if a Wi-Fi was going on somewhere. Okay, there were people having a drum set, maybe an accordion, and of course there were animals. Symbols take the form of words, sounds, and gestures, or visual images. We have all seen symbols that say stop. There are campsites, numerals are symbols for numbers, personal names are symbols of different individuals. A red rose symbolizes love and compassion. And it can be finalized that a symbol is an ordinary object, an event, a person, an animal, or color which we have attached to a special meaning and significance. Well, that's a symbol. Then what's symbolism? The use of a symbol simply is called symbolism. The use would be any kind, example, religious, social awareness, and there may be a definition of symbolism. The Cambridge Learner Advanced Dictionary states symbolism is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meanings that are different from their literal sense. The Learner's Dictionary says the use of symbols to express or represent ideas or qualities in literature, art, science is also called as a symbol. Symbolism is also a particular idea or a quality that is expressed by a symbol. So hence symbolism can take different forms. It is generally an object representing another to give it an entirely different meaning that is much deeper and more significant. Sometimes, however, an action, an event, or a word is spoken by someone may have a symbolic value. For instance, a smile is a symbol of friendship. If I point my finger at you like this and says, I want you to join the army, okay, it's an Uncle Sam that is talking to you to join the United States Army. Symbols have different meanings. If I use the word gate, gate can mean a duck walking. For someone, a gate may be an entrance, but this is a symbol that I use. It's a word which I used. But what am I really talking about? If I look at a set of symbols, can I have the next slide, please? This is a simple pentagram. This polygon is a misunderstood symbol. The West clearly states that this symbol is something that was discovered by Pythagoras. But one thing I will agree, this symbol talks about balance more than any other thing. The next slide. This is thousands of years old, much, much before Pythagoras. The Sham Kali Yantra. The next, please. Yes. Now, a little history that made this a negative symbol. Well, if we have to take the symbol that was given to us by Pythagoras, we'll agree right now that this was given to us by Pythagoras. It was basically used as a symbol for protection. But let's go to it in the next slide, and you'll understand what I'm saying. Young magicians in the old days used this. And just like some of us wear different emblems for the first degree or for the second degree or for the third degree, Similarly, if these people wore that emblem to indicate certain things. The next slide, please. It was used as a symbol for protection once upon a time. It represented gods in ancient Babylon. And it was also an emblem that associated itself with the worship of beauty and love. But what happened? Something went wrong with this symbol. What went wrong with this symbol? Next slide. Dogme et al. Rituo de la magie, okay, was a book written by Appius Levi. He spoke about someone, a Greek god, and he painted himself in such a way that this whole symbol started taking a wrong turn. Next slide. Baphomet was not evil at all. In fact, he was a symbol of an extremely wise alchemist. But when a new religion was started, the Church of Satan was started somewhere in the 1930s by Anton LaVey. The whole aspect of the pentagram changed and it started becoming evil. And thousands of years, when it was perceived to be wonderful and nice, just evaporated. The Masonic brethren would appreciate this particular slide because this is something what is represented by people who are not Masons. Okay, it is basically a cartoon drawn by a Mason. Okay, but this really doesn't exist in Masonry. We'll move on from here. Masonic symbology, believe me, has come down to us from a huge world of religion, of culture, and symbolism that we are talking of today is really not unique in that sense, because different cultures have different ways that they look at symbols. This symbol, I think everybody would appreciate. Okay, because a lot of people feel that Masonry is only this, from labor to refreshment. Masonic symbols provide a huge amount of visual means of attaining the beginnings of Masonic education. Some of the Masonic images which we see today are from 5,000 years ago. And to be very accurate, 3,000 years ago, the Sumerians gave us what we call as the cuneiform scripts. These were used by the Persians to a particular extent, and more so by the Mesopotamians. However, Masonic scholars today point out to a lot of symbols that we have, especially a symbol that we will discuss a little later in this presentation, a point within a circle with two parallelograms up, with two parallel lines above and below. That came to us from somewhere around 1570 to about 1340 BC. Was this one of the first symbols? But we don't know about it for sure. We also know that the King Solomon's temple was built somewhere around 953 BC. Did it begin with an operative mason's stone guild in the Middle Ages between somewhere around 500 to maybe 1580? We really don't know. We really don't know. In Scotland, we have Robert the Bruce. These questions basically are a subject for debate when we look at some of the symbols. The next slide, Brother Vinesh. This is a wonderful painting with snow all around, and it's called as the death of the grave digger. Next slide, please. If you look at this, the death of the grave digger, go back to the slide, Brother Dinesh. If you look at the amount of work that has been put into this painting, the snow lying everywhere around, the grave, and the grave digger, who is basically putting so many bodies, has to somehow put his own body into his own grave. This is not an authentic symbol of Freemasonry. But if you look at the learnings and the meanings of some of the Freemason symbols, Masonic symbology comes to us from a lot of so-called secrecy. Believe me when I say this, the secrecy of Masonry comes to us not because they wanted to hide things from us. It comes to us because a lot of Masons were absolutely illiterate. And when I mean illiterate, please don't confuse me. Don't take my word for the word illiterate in the literal sense. They were highly educated in their field, but they were not able to read and write. And because they weren't able to read and write, it became an issue of how to pass on their secrets to us. During the Middle Ages, or what we call as the Dark Ages, and through subsequent centuries, most of this population, you will know that even today, are people who are working on the roads, people who are building roads, people who are building buildings, just signify themselves with the letter X. If you have gone to a bank, the bank manager himself will mark 4 X's or 5 X's on a form and says, put your signature here. Your lawyers will also tell you to put your signatures even on your last will and testament by just putting X marks. That doesn't mean, or in no way am I saying that they were not educated. I'm saying they were illiterate. But illiteracy did not make the old generations and even Masons stupid or less operative in their craft. They were simply working people taking care of their families who wanted to work from morning 6 to evening 7, and they would just put their marks across. There was a very funny story which my father happened to mention to me. He says that when he was making his last will and testament, they didn't ask him to sign, they asked him for his thumbprint. Of course, this left hand thumbprint. So he said, my education just disappeared. Well, today, when we are using our cell phones, the cell phone never asks us to put in our signature. It says, put your thumbprint, isn't it? Well, these are marks that we are talking about in the past. Now, I'm getting down to the masonry symbols or the symbols of masonry. I'm not going to divulge any major secrets to you, but what these symbols really mean to us. The next slide, please. Yes. If you look at the symbols, symbols are religious, socio-cultural, scientific, economic, uh, arts, and then of course Masonic. Uh, we are going to discuss a lot on Masonic symbolism. So uh, the next slide, Brother Inesh. Okay. Ichthus. In the old days, this was the first symbol for Christians. It was not the cross. It was not anything but this. What does it all represent? It was the word that Jesus Christ used when he came to the Sea of Galilee. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Please understand, the disciples of Jesus Christ were not rich. They were all fishermen. Wasn't it the easiest symbol for them to understand? So, for almost 3 centuries to 4 centuries, Christianity was known by the symbol of the fish. What does each word represent there? It really means the Son, or God's Son, or our Savior. Okay, next slide. This is how symbols basically become routine. First, it gets into what we call it as a steady state. And when you have a symbol, you look at a symbol, you cannot understand what it is. Remember, when we were children, we were taught the periodic table. I think still some of us would be confused as to where what is. Okay, it was for us a steady state. Then we had to learn where what was. Then was a period of what we call it as cultural distortion, because someone added some stuff to that periodic table and confusion went all away. And whatever we learned was gone to the dogs. We had to relearn certain things. This sort of a thing really happened to us when we switched over from the metric system into the SI. Inches became millimeters and centimeters, and then there was chaotic situation. Similarly, after a period of revitalization, we have reformulation, communication to others, organizations of followers, adaptations to different people. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Now, Masonic symbols, we say that there are lots of secrets in Masonic symbols. Believe me, there are not many secrets in Masonic symbols. But the problem is, we never see eye to eye, and we always tend to disagree with what someone else says about Masonic symbols. If you look at the real secrets of Masonry, even today, the real secrets are always protected and only offered to those who prove to the Almighty their moral purity and trustworthiness. This small talk with you today is that I want to give you my thoughts in whatever we have missed, because most of the our secrets are all head fakes. I will try and open some of you by just doing one small thing. I will try and stop time for you. Uh, don't think I'm one of those great swamis or sadhus that are going to stop time for you. Please understand me when I say that modern speculative craft Freemasons compiled our rituals that we use today. They are based on different ceremonial procedures, and those that are used in our operative lodges, we have adapted them to our social surroundings instead of actually working with them. Although the fundamental elements of operative practice were retained, the explanations became more erudite and lengthy. You remember? I said some time ago here that not all our ancient brethren were literate. And what really happened, once it became too erudite and too pompous, they tend to drop out of it because they do not want to continue with any of these pompous things. They want to work with their hands. So, in all these explanations and these big words that we use in our rituals, simple things just disappeared. If you look at this foundation, you'll notice that this foundation is actually a square. Okay. Why is it a square? Well, I will have a lot of people who will curse me at the end of this presentation of mine. But a lot of people ask questions of me, and one of these biggest questions that's asked of me is, how could horny-handed laborers have developed a system of symbolism and philosophy to give moral instruction within the lodge? Well, I'm using brother A.E. White on this, and even brother R.F. Gold said operative Masons might have accepted gentlemen into their ranks so that they could transform their operative craft into a speculative craft. Brethren, I think this stinks of arrogance, of education over common sense. Our operative ancestors were men who were resolved to find ways for themselves, and they could find opportunities enough, and were ready to make and create with their hand. It has never been that those who have enjoyed the advantages of colleges, museums, public galleries have accomplished most for science and art, nor have the greatest mechanics and inventors that have been trained in mechanic institutes across the world have the facility to do great things, because the mother of invention has always been the school of difficulty. I'm repeating this. The mother of invention has always been the school of difficulty. Remember that a bad workman never made a good tool. Someone once asked John Pope by what wonderful process he mixed his colors on his paintings. And he said, I mix them with my brains, sir. Ferguson made wooden clocks with a penknife, and Dr. Black discovered latent heat with a pan of water and with two thermometers. Masonry began, I'm repeating this number today, 30,000 years ago. Not in 1717, not in 1625. Sorry, it began 30,000 years ago, when our advanced hunters of the East first compacted earth and put in stone footings in hard clay to build circular dwellings which improve stability for the exceptionally high runoffs of the melting ice of the last ice age. We have been told in our rituals from time immemorial, but it has fallen on many deaf ears. So many point out to that square and compasses that we know about today did not exist until 1717, and they could be wrong. Let me progress to it slowly. For many of us, the ritual book is king. Rather, many look at me, and when I say things like this, look at me like as if I'm a heretic. But there is evidence that was old even 10,000 years ago. Masonry, in the end, now begins to conceal and only reveals it to some. The so-called square and compass emblem has been carved on a seashell that has aroused a lot of wide interest. The next slide, please. Yes. This is over 2,000 years old. It's on a seashell. It was found in Casa Grande, okay? And it's about 1,800, 2,000 years old. Now, let's go individually to each of these symbols. If you look at the two earlier symbols, please go to 2 slides behind. Yes. What you see here is the DNA structure, the helix. We have the square and the compasses being held. We'll come to these images a little later. Now, let me go to the next slide, please. Yes, yes. Now we will start talking. Now that we look at our temples and we see the floor of our temples, which was originally what you call as on a floor cloth or a checkered pavement, it was for high priests to walk upon. It says somewhere in one of our tracing boards. What we are looking at here is what we call as the quantum foam. If you look at the far left of your screen, you will see the quantum foam. And I have to tell you something called as the Planck's length. Planck's length is an extremely small length, which is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 35. Now, I mentioned to you is that I'm going to stop time. And this is exactly where I'm at. Well, the quantum length is the exact length when classical ideas of gravity and space-time cease to be valid and the quantum effects or quantum mechanics sets in. Then at that level, we have the quantum foam. To understand this, you need to still bear with me for a few moments. The square pavement that we have is all calculation, and even the tessellated border on which we walk on is called as a nika. The mosaic pavement is this beautiful floor which is composed of squares alternatively black and white. And it is explained in the craft ritual as the diversity of objects which decorate and ornament creation, the animate as well as the inanimate parts thereof. Its alternate squares, however, symbolize not only the mingling of living and material things in the world, but even more the intermingling of spirit and life, spirit and matter, life and matter everywhere. The double triangles interlace, intricate, the same great fact in nature, and even though we have to cut them to understand them. My next slide, please. If you look at what I'm showing to you here, I must take you a little, in understanding what it is. Each and every planet is like as if it's on a string. And these strings are all tied together. Each planet has its own weight and it creates a dent in the quantum form. The temple floor is actually this, on which we have to perambulate or ambulate, resembling the orbits of smaller celestial bodies around larger ones. I will show it to you in the slide for better understanding. Now, brethren, the orbits of stars and planets are not as oval as they may seem to us. Rather, they are in a straight line, slowly whirled about by the quantum foam. Next slide, please. If you look at this slide, you will understand that each of these planets is creating its own gravitational force, bending it, and then showing. And that is the reason why, even though the planet is moving in a square, it appears for us that it is moving in an orbit that is rather circular or elliptical. Now, when I was, in Hyderabad, and Worshipful Brother Shankar was taking me around, he told me that the Lodge Temple, the St. John's Lodge, has a Tau on top of the ceiling. And it struck me then that, wow, if the Tau is a part of that symbol there, then it must have some further meaning to it. The temple floor, thus becomes a place where the Tau cross or the symbol of the spirit is submerged in matter. The inverted Tau cross represented the spirit associated with but above matter and is considered the mark of a sign or life. Worshipful masters carry this on their aprons to show they are representative of time, and time is infinity. They are all risen from the dead and are above matter and represent the Holy Spirit, the Supreme Being. Lodge temples have tassels to the corners. Now, if you look at this, there are corners to this diagram. They have corners to this diagram. The tassels represent the four great powers that create the universe: fire, earth, water, and land. If you go to my earlier pentagram, which I showed to you, this has got nothing to do with religion at all. These four rulers of the elements are invoked in the lodge And the consequences of that are very real, they are beneficial, and little as members of the fraternity may be aware of the fact. The circle with the center and the true line and the two lines drawn actually mean a sidereal day pertaining to the stars, and the two lines around the circle, the line on top and bottom, represent the stars that are spinning and the corrections needed to every day and every year respectively. The earth, as we all know, is spinning on its axis at the speed of about 450 meters per second and moving around the sun at about 107,000 kilometers per hour, is a proof to all Masons that we must keep to our center while doing correct as the earth does, as we are heading or riding along in the Milky Way in the directions of those constellations of Leo and Virgo that are to us at the speed of 2.1 million kilometers per hour towards a thing that we do not understand yet. It is called as the Great Attractor. Brethren, what you will notice in this particular slide is what we have in our lodges as the all-seeing eye. There are bodies that are so heavy that they actually, changed even light. Next slide, please. And this is what we actually see. We are seeing through certain bodies. Slowly, it will appear to you that this is what they were talking about. Though the representation for many of the eye that we call as the all-seeing eye is a symbol of Freemasonry, in actuality, it is really a process of distortion. If you look at the eye of Ra, or the god Ra, the violent force that subdues all his enemies, similarly, the dark energy or the large mass of stars can subdue and bend light around itself. The Egyptians go to great lengths to show this. A thought may arise for you, brethren. Next slide, please. Do you know that I have spoken about why a worshipful master carries towels? They're both physical and spiritual. And that is the reason why our mothers apply a tilak on us. The tilak also represents a tau. It's the symbol of Tammuz, of dying, of rising. Now, brethren, you may look at me and you may say, but the lodge is flat. If our ancestors were so good in getting this whole universe into our lodges, why is it not round or circular? Well, if you look at quantum mechanics again, the lodge is represented as a flat structure because the universe has just the mass density so that it can expand. The curvature of the universe is defined by mass density of space or amount of energy or mass per volume. If there is a lot of matter in the universe, is closed and can collapse on itself. If there is not much matter, the universe will open and will expand forever. However, the universe is in perfect balance. And the density is exactly critical density. That makes the universe flat and will continue to expand forever at an increasingly slower rate and will stop when time reaches infinity. Now, brethren, that is until time with us shall be no more. Brethren, we carry this emblem with us at all times. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, our worshipful masters have it on their aprons. The triple tau, the inverted tau, and the simple inverted tau. But, brethren, before I end this today, the next slide, please. The sidereal days being shown to you. The next slide, please. The next slide, please. When the sun is above, this is a particular uh, uh, sculpture made by an artist. So please go ahead, show it to next. Yes, it creates a circle, a perfect circle at the perfect time of the sidereal day. Next slide. Yes. The point within a circle is this. We are spinning across this way, but it appears to us that we are spinning actually in a straight line. And as I was always mentioning to you, the next slide, please. We are moving towards this dark blue spot called as, it's basically somewhere near, if you go to Norma and the Great Attractor, you look at it, that's where we are all moving from the universe to that particular spot. And remember, when we say GA, it actually means the Great Attractor and not the Great Architect. Next slide, please. This is how it actually looks. That's where we are going. And that's where we talk of light in Masonry. Okay, the next slide, please. Now, before this happens, I said that the worshipful master carries with him infinity. And this is what I'm saying. That snake on your aprons, my dear brethren, is the emblem, and it is infinity. Thank you.
Thank you, brother Govind. That was absolutely mind-blowing and
it was different.
truly, yeah,
It was actually
very amazing, very amazing.
You know, because when we heard the topic, which you were obviously going to say, symbolism, as most of us over here who are present, by the way, everybody would come up and say, yeah, we have heard about it. And yes, he is going to explore something which will be a little different or something which we might not have heard. This, I can guarantee, we have 14 people with us today. I can guarantee none of us had ever thought about this point. You know, my favorite part in this thing was the way when you were able to connect the all-seeing eye, the way you are actually able to see something in that level, and the straight lines are still obviously because of the curve, obviously because of the quantum sorry, because of the gravitational pull which is there on the the gravitational pull which is there on the heavy body, which is like in our case maybe the earth or the sun or anything. This just makes us realize that the masonry, Freemasonry at our time, when people were able to bring the philosophical element in today's rituals, in the way we actually interact with each other, they actually had a lot of knowledge. Yes, they definitely did use symbolism, as you mentioned, right? That let's use symbolism so that we can explain the illiterate because they are not able to understand the concept. But then they were not illiterate with the rest, with the aspect of not knowing what the things are around them, right? That's what actually matters.
Ancient knowledge.
Yes.
More than just being literate and being able to sign your name, it was essentially an ancient knowledge that had to do with that. The quantum form.
Rinesh, I always say this to a lot of Freemasons who sometimes don't believe what I say.
Uh-huh.
The whole aspect of the lodge is getting that universe and moving you across the universe. That is what is the meaning of the lodge, and that is why liquor is not allowed, because it's supposed to be spiritual in a Masonic lodge. You can go for your fellowship outside, but nothing is allowed in the Masonic lodge. Everything, every aspect of a Masonic lodge has got to be understood in the way that it is been put there.
The spiraling of the Kundalini,
Yes,
rising up,
exactly.
and we have to rise. And then if we drink alcohol, the Kundalini gets brought back down again. So if
Exactly.
we don't, we have to bring it up. And then
Yes.
the whole idea of the DNA and the information of the Akashic knowledge and the singularity of the point within a circle is beautiful.
Yes.
Govind, as usual, excellent lecture. It's a pleasure always hearing you speak or reading what you write. You touched about the pentagram, and for whatever reasons, the pentagram today has been thought of to be representing that of the satanic or occultism connected. So that is the reason why the pentagram is not used as a symbol across.
This evening,
I know. You're going to talk about it this evening.
Yeah.
I'm already aware of it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just giving you some inputs for that as well. The star of the pentagram, if you look at the lines, the 4 lines, the correlation between the 4 lines is equal to the golden ratio.
Yes.
Point number 1. Point number 2 is, if you look at from Earth, if you look at the transition of Venus across the sky,
yes,
it goes in the form of a pentagram.
Exactly.
With the relation between Venus and Earth is 13/8, which is of orbits, in the sense that for 13 orbits around the sun by Venus, Earth does about 8 orbits. And the correlation between these two is again the golden ratio, which is 1.6.
Exactly.
And we all know that it is the culmination of Venus and the Mercury at its closest points appear as a single star, which could probably be the star, what do you call, the star which probably led the 3 wise men to Bethlehem to behold the Son of God. Or it could be that we raise our eyes to that bright morning star whose rising brings peace and salvation to the faithful and obedient of the human race. This just I wanted to add, and I have a couple of things about pentagram. When you finish the lecture today, you will have those questions bombarded to you.
Sanjay, that could be also Sirius, the brightest star. So star Sirius could be the star that the 3 wise men were following.
Actually.
No, it is not Sirius.
This is a totally different issue that we are discussing here.
Even you had mentioned that Sirius was involved. So how is Sirius in play with this? And also there's a planet star called Alcyon or Alcy-1. So could you give me a bit of information on your understanding of its correlation to what you just explained?
See, when you look at these basic stars, Sirius basically was treated with a lot of awe because it was easily noticeable in those days. And everything that we do is pointing out to Sirius right now. Okay. Oh, this was done is because they felt that it was the great attractor.
Okay.
But looking at modern science, and I may be wrong, okay, and they may be right, because they tended to know more about all this than we do right now. So they could still be right, and Sirius would be the place where we are actually heading. We don't know that.
Okay.
We really don't know that. See, there are lots of things that I try to find out, and sometimes I get bogged down trying to understand why is this? Why is this? Why does
it's about the details, and the details get very fuzzed. Yes.
That trouble me sometimes.
Yes.
Brother Govind, I
Yeah.
wanted a quick question on the image which you had showcased. Remember the double helix?
Yes.
Can you just explain something more about it? Because it kind
Yeah,
of
it's
showcases
basically a
those.
Chinese symbol. It's basically a Chinese symbol that talks of sex
Okay. It's
and
the union.
the union of two, and that's where the helix and everything comes into picture.
That's right. But still, we actually have a square and compass in that. Like,
Yes, there
so
is a
that
square and a compass.
so that
That
kind
is
of
what the
that
square and compass actually talks of sex.
again the
Yeah,
union
but
between,
it's not carnal. It's not carnal.
not carnal. Right. Right.
It's meant
Universal.
spiritual, sex. Somebody, I think it was Ramakrishna Paramahamsa who said this.
Hmm.
He says, meeting God is even greater than the best orgasm you'll ever have.
Because
And
it
in the
kind of
old days,
completes you.
yes, in the old days,
Hmm.
they used to say that the only time that you're closest to God
Hmm.
is when you're having an orgasm. And at that moment, if you can take God's name, you will be reaching the sublime.
Right. So
This is the release of all the chemicals in the brain at that moment.
Yes,
So the
yes,
brain and the pineal gland become activated
Yes,
all
exactly.
simultaneously.
right. So Brother Govind, the question was about, we still try to see, or rather we still see that the square and the compass, which
Yes.
obviously today in today's date is the most common symbol for Freemasons around the world when
Correct.
we bring them together. That
Yeah.
has always been in every field which we have seen, actually, as a matter of fact, because that has been showcased by most of the Masons who actually do their work and
Yes.
everything. So there has to be some meaning to it.
Actually, Rinesh, let me also explain to you. The square that we are saying is a square is only a part of a square.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So we are using the word square, but actually it's not a square. It is trying
And
to
the compass
explain
is
to you
also two
that-
separate points as
yes,
well,
yes.
right?
Actually, it's trying to explain to you one aspect that there is much more than you can see.
Okay.
And the compasses are that boundary that you have to create and keep moving about
Right.
and expand as flat as you can get. And it is the compass that will help you from the other part of the square.
Point left, right. Point
Yeah.
left, right.
So,
That is
brother,
what-
Yeah, Rudy.
yeah, no, please continue, brother.
Yeah, and that is what is basically the whole aspect of Freemasonry. When we use words like it teaches you how to die, that's exactly what.
How to accept death, because also they say when you die, the last moment of thought. So the training of our lives is for that last moment to be the moment we want to continue on through.
Correct.
So that's a belief in that, So that moment we die, we must have that right thought. Because if we have the wrong thought and we go, then we're going to go to a bad place. So hell and heaven is not a place; it's a creation in our mind.
In the minds. See, I
Exactly.
tell you,
See, this is what Krishna also.
nothing can be better explained like it's explained in Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
You carry all your good deeds in your sadhara.
Shadra. Yes.
Yeah,
Sadra.
in the pocket of your sadhara. You
Yes.
carry it all there. See what a beautiful concept that they've given us. You have to look at that. You have to appreciate it.
And in the sadhara, in the center of our sadhara, we have a small square.
Yes.
Which is kept. That has a very important
That's how good
symbology as
deeds
well.
are, which are good deeds are. And by the way, when you go to when you go to the Tower of Silence, you go without the sadhara, you go without your kasti, okay, and that really means that everything is gone already, booked, account
Finished.
is already cleared there. Your body is, your mortal remains are going now, and even your mortal remains are not yours.
Yeah, you're talking about the person who is deceased.
He who is deceased.
Yeah. Because the people who go for his funeral do wear a sadhara kasti, and then they do ritual beforehand, and then they take the body up, a small group, and then it's kept.
That Brother Richard is obviously because they still are there. They still have to consider their good deeds. They still have to actually have that and keep that.
It's to such a degree of consideration. It's to such a degree of consideration that the body cannot be burnt also.
Yes.
That even the fire, we don't believe we're pure enough to even be burnt by the fire. Whereas Hinduism talks about the burning of the body. In Zoroastrianism, we believe that we have to go naturally. And that is the best karmic structure to work with.
What basically happens, Richard, is that different religions follow different things that were closest to them.
Yes.
Wood was very difficult to get in the desert at that time.
That's right.
So they could have followed this method of giving back to nature. Because the easiest thing to do was to throw the body in the hot sand. The ants could get to you and the vultures could get to you.
Right.
But I think the priests at the highest level understood this was the Akashic
But yeah, they
flame.
understand it in a different way. They understand
so
it in a different way. They understand
perception can be played sociologically, psychologically, and ritually.
But it also depends upon the place where you come from. Like, it's very difficult for somebody to come up and say that in the hilly regions, right, where you obviously, as you mentioned, that you don't have trees and you don't have those kind of woods, it's always easier to just like bury the body there in one corner, obviously accordingly. But the most important point is we have been able to give have some understanding with that and give value to it, which actually stands out and sometimes makes us step back and like, oh wow, this is how the meaning it actually is all about.
I'll just
even
add
when
to
we
that,
go, we walk along the thin path, right? So that path, we have to not be too fat or too thin. If you're too thin, you'll fall off and be blown away. If you're too fat, you'll fall off because you can't. So that balance that Brother Govind was talking about is essentially the essence of life.
That's
right.
the balance. Right. You need to have everything right within you.
Yes. Brother Sanjay, you were saying something.
No, I'll just add to that. Since humans have been evolved from apes, so we consider monkeys as our forefathers, probably, from whom we have evolved. Now, if you look at a monkey, when it knows that it is nearing its death, it goes and it stops eating and it goes inside a tree, near a tree, and it buries himself half buried inside the tree. Over a period of time, when he loses his life, a stream of ants come and an ant hill is formed on top of the monkey, and the ants that are there devour the remains of the monkey. So the purpose of the monkey is that post-death, it helps in the other organisms to survive on its body.
Yes.
So I think that could be one of the reasons why the Zoroaster faith has got, the Parsi faith has got this particular aspect of the Tower
Hinduism,
of Silence.
Sanjay.
In Bhagavad Gita, in fact, you were talking about
the Hinduism part was going down into the forest.
And they consider the Himalayas are littered with gurus who have sat in tapas for thousands of years and who have just become sort of spiritual shields upon the earth. And they've just given their body. So in a way, that's sort of the same thing. But maybe at our level of spirituality as Zoroastrians, we need to take this step. And then later on, as we grow and we start progressing, we can go to those stages of evolution where we can do such levels of tapas and sadhana.
So what I feel, Richard, is what happened was when you people left Persia to come to India, you took a whole new language.
That's true.
And a lot of this could have gone, the interpretations could have gone wrong somewhere in something. So I feel
I believe that the Parsis or the original Zoroastrians and the Brahmins of India were very interconnected from the same zone.
Yes,
and they split for religious reasons, and they were the same people.
I have Brother Cyrus who's smiling there, and I know he has a lot to add to this point. Brother Cyrus, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm just wondering, we started symbolism and we are now talking about the Parsi way of dying.
Symbolically.
It always attracts a lot of attention. And how...
Cyrus, even the Jain way of dying.
Yeah.
Santara.
Okay, is a unique way of dying. In fact, that's the right way to die, I feel.
Yeah, Govind, actually, when listening to your lecture, as a scientific mind, I really enjoyed that part about the checkered payment, which you showed as a gravity
form,
as a gravity object, where the space and time is warping around it. It was very interesting. And some thought came to my mind when we say that the lodge, opening of the lodge. What is a lodge? Just a thought that came when listening to you. He said a lodge, sun rises in the east to open the lodge. In the west to close the lodge. So when we look at the practical lodge, we see it is opening at 6 in the evening and closing at 7 in the evening. Okay. So then what is a lodge? Is that a lodge? Is that a part of our life that our life starts in the day, and the lodge is a representative of our life or of our daily life? I was just thinking. This is just a thought that came to my mind.
You know how I look at the lodge. I'll tell you. Lodge is when you go into the ritual properly and you do the ritual perfectly, and it moves you that much more in your spiritual journey across. So the more meetings you attend and the more you go through this, what you call it, lodge rituals, you are progressing spiritually in life by understanding it in a different way.
But I think the lodge is an euphemism for life.
Yes, it is. It is. It is.
Life starts in the day and closes in the night. Sunset to sunrise to sunset.
Sunrise to sunset.
That is what the ritual is actually trying to portray. And I like that concept where the bending of light due to a heavy object or a gravity force created an all-seeing eye. Well, very interesting to see.
I think that was my favorite takeaway from this. Like the way he actually brought that point, right? I don't think so I have thought about that in that level yet. And that's why we need genius like Worship with the Govind Welling to give us a lecture on these things.
Yeah, especially bringing it into
the floor.
Ra and the Eye of Ra and everything. That was connecting the Egyptian with everything. That's quite. That's the first time I'm hearing, that connection. So it's very interesting.
Now, see, what I basically try to do is not give you the same things that you have been repeatedly getting, because you need to expand your mind. And the only way that you can expand your mind is to understand these concepts.
True.
And these concepts are there. The tassels are there. Why are the tassels there? You say because of so and so, so and so. Each tassel is represented by something.
Yes.
Yeah. And in fact,
that was my point,
symbols,
actually. Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, Richard. But speaking of symbols, especially misunderstood symbols like the pentagram, I think no symbol has been misunderstood or demonized more in the 20th century than the swastika. I think that ancient symbol, which for thousands of years has been so highly important to many philosophers.
My father used to tell me this about the swastika. He says, see, the swastika is so powerful as an emblem, but the Nazis used it in the wrong way.
And they inverted it.
It protected them for some time and then destroyed them. Absolutely destroyed them. It finished them off. It's because they didn't use the swastika in the right way. The swastika has to be used in the right way.
It's like a Markaba. It spins in a certain manner. So if you start to spin it the other way, you'll get negative energy. Spin it one way, you'll get a positive energy. So.
Yeah, although there have been quite a few documented variations. So you have the sort of reverse swastika in many Eastern cultures, and you have both the clockwise and anti-clockwise and variations. But I mean, what do you think is? Could you tell us a little bit more about the symbolism of that?
See, basically, the swastika, is an extremely old symbol. That has got to do something with something called as a Sudarshan Chakra. So, what the thing was that as the religions kept on going, even the cross basically is a broken swastika.
And the Chiru.
Yes.
The P with the X in the center also has a very high level symbology as well to it.
Similarly with the pentagram, I'm not going to discuss the pentagram too much this evening. Just touch and go. I'm not going to discuss it in a great level. But the pentagram also, each one has a different aspect to it. Each arm has got a different aspect to it. And that's what is actually the 5 points of fellowship. I think George may speak about it, or
Yes, he is going to. He's going to.
The different degrees in which you make the pentagram creates a different type of pentagram. So the Star of David and the way with which you create it, the order with which you perceive it is also an activator and deactivator of symbolism. So at least in a Enochian magic, if you start from the left and you go up in a continuity, then you have a separate symbolization. You can do it in reverse for different types of invoking. So I think there's a lot.
If you look at the pentagram in that Kali Yantra, you will notice that it is not straight; it is at an angle.
Mm.
I tried to figure this out many times. Why it is at an angle, I'm not able to actually get.
There's also the 0-degree pentagram, which is like where the 2 points touch from the center, which is basically the rose.
This one is at an angle. This one is at an angle.
Correct. Even in some Freemasonic square and compasses are kept at a slight angle as well in certain orders, because that symbolizes a certain degree out of sync, But I think that's a bit more detailed to what I wanted to ask you a quick question on the tessellata, actually, on the floor that we spoke about, and regarding to your quantum foam theory. So the quantum foam and the Planck length. So now you've actually given me the terminology of what my theory was based on Planck length. So what I perceive is that when a 3D or a 4-dimensional or a 5-dimensional object sits upon a 1-dimensional or 2-dimensional plane, it creates an imprint. So a 5-dimensional object in a 2-dimensional reality will be just the tip of a finger or maybe a shadow, right? So the tessellata, the flooring, is essentially the bottom part of the circular wheel that moves. In a way, because it's a meditation. There is a brother in America who does checkered floor meditation. So he gets brethren to come into the lodge, they sit down and they meditate upon the checkered floor. And then they look at it in certain angles and it creates a sort of illusion. Yeah. So could you highlight?
The checkered floor basically is an hypnotic event for us. It basically hypnotizes us into actually understanding how the celestial objects are all around us. So what they basically did was, the universe is very vast, right? So they used the Planck length to create a universe within a lodge.
A unit in the universe.
Yes. And they take us along the whole universe. There is a very beautiful degree called as the August Order of Light. Okay. That would actually take you on the lodge floor across the universe, across different constellations.
Yes. Oh, I think we have come to the point wherein it will actually help us and maybe haunt us for some time with respect to what we need to think about when we see some symbols in future. And that's exactly what the symbolism we want to. I guess, Richard, over to you so that you can bring it back home.
Yeah, just one last quick one. The Axe of Ra. I was really wanting some explanation on that, what the symbology may mean to you, or what's its simulation towards Freemasonry.
For me, the Egyptians basically knew how to create the universe on the planet, and what was the way to go to the universe up. So they created these pyramids basically that were actually, I feel, that is where we do not have the methods of how they went about doing it, because it's not very easy to move tons of rock. If you compare the King Solomon's temple, it was minuscule as compared to a pyramid.
That's true.
But they have not found any proof that King Solomon's temple actually was
No, it
built
did exist.
yet.
It did exist.
I'm sure it did, but it's difficult to find the proof.
In fact, let me tell you, the King Solomon's temple, I think in one of my presentations, I showed it to you all. It is 7 stories high.
I remember that one. You had shown that one. I've seen this.
I said, this is the place where 7 stories high. The way that they are saying King Solomon's temple was so and so by so and so, it was not so. See, the whole citadel was also created around it. Of course, then it went down and it broke up to King Solomon's wives and so and so and so and so and many other things. But in the end, basically, it was what King Solomon was basically trying to also see, that it was, God was very easily reachable to an ordinary human.
But these locations around the world, like Pumapumku, Egypt, the Aztecs, and all these are essentially, at least according to me, they're geological positions to be able to study the alignments of the stars at the zero point of Cancer. So there's an equator line. So that's the point where they can see it more clearly.
Let me explain to you in one way. What is the point in just learning about stars? See, they basically
for people to come, maybe. For people to come, maybe.
No, they basically needed to go to the spiritual being. They wanted a gateway to be able to go reach him and come down. Reach him and come down.
And Brother Richard, to your point, right? Like when you say that these are at the geographical point of being at that equator and everything, sometimes I like to use the explanation of Occam's razor. Sometimes the simplest explanation actually explains most of the things. And I'm not saying that not that there are any other explanation, but that there are times when some explanations which are very straightforward. See, the equator zone is where your most of the flora and fauna is. If you actually ever see the way the human have actually moved from one point to the other, it has always been into these zones. Nobody is going to be interested, nobody is interested in going into the Arctic zone or the Antarctic zone or go to the deep south where you cannot survive. You are obviously going to be there. Now, if you actually,
say there are pyramid structures there too.
Obviously, because any structure, if you ever want to build, is always going to be in the pyramid form. It cannot be in a straight form. How are you going to build that? A pyramid helps you to build it because you will keep a building block in that manner. Then you will go. You don't even need to go anywhere. You just give a kid some building blocks and just tell him if he can actually, if he or she can understand that he or she has to build something, he and she also is going to build it in the pyramid form because they understand that's the only way you can reach to the top. Now, we have given it in a very simple or rather a philosophical meaning on taking those steps and reaching that level. Now, if we think that why everybody is in the pyramid, that's supposedly the standard way of creating anything that big. Then we came to the age of masonry where we understood how we're going to keep blocks in such a manner that we can build something straight away. Forget everything. The Bible story of Tower of Babel, that itself is also in the form of a pyramid. Why? Because that is exactly how you're going to go to and reach to the top. First, there are so many, then this, and then that. Dante's Inferno, when it talks about the entire idea, it's an inverted pyramid. Why? Because at the pinnacle is everything, which is where everybody has to come. Now, I can't build a superstructure like the Chicago's 101 tower or the South Korea's tower and everything in a straight format. In those eras, it was not possible. Pyramid is easier to make.
So that's it. Thank you, Brother Govind, for an amazing lecture. So please feel free to give us your feedback in the comments below. And a hearty thanks to all the brethren and visitors who joined us on today's episode. We hope that you have found something special and informative. We look forward to interacting with you through our social media handles, where you can express your opinions, views, or even post queries about Freemasonry. Links are in the description below. So join us again next time for an all-new episode. Until then, please hit that subscribe button and press the bell icon. If you can show that you've given us a thumbs up, that would be really good, and we'd be really happy. Join us at the same Masonic time, same Masonic place. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.